Luo Shen-shi is an 18-year-old boy preparing for his college entrance examination. Albeit, to him, such an exam is simply a show-off field for bookworms. His mother, who does not live with him as a result of her special job, had given up on him. He lives alone, maybe not totally alone. He lives with a handful of dolls, whom he refers to and communicates with as if they were his girlfriends. Upon arriving at his apartment, he greeted his girlfriends and narrated his entire day to them, from how beautiful he felt the weather was to the long queue at the supermarket. He informed them of the new flavors he had bought to try out. He picked one of the dolls, named Lei Miu, to share dinner with. He soon fell into a sad state, blaming his mother for his loneliness. His phone soon rang, and information was passed to him that the package he had ordered days ago had finally arrived. He picked up and signed for the package bought by the delivery guy. He unwrapped the package, and a new phone was revealed. At least he had a new phone to keep and use. He connects the phone to his laptop in order to transfer all his files to the new phone. He soon falls asleep during the process and falls into a dream. In the trance-like dream, he was asked by a voice if he wanted superpowers. He waved off this when, suddenly, a supernatural lady appeared with a bright light charging toward him. Luo wakes up to the sound of the blaring alarm. He reaches out to switch off the alarm, as it was a weekend. Rather than the glassy surface of his phone he was expecting, he was welcomed with a soft and warm skin. He immediately opens his eyes to the reality that a woman has replaced the phone he touched seconds ago. The lady simply calls him master and asks why she was also there as a human. Luo threatens to call the police as he labels his phone-turned girl as a drunk who came into the wrong house. The girl started crying, blaming her owner for abandoning her after he got a new phone. He soon discovered that his old phone was missing. Luo accuses her of taking the phone when the ringing tone came from her. She asked if she should pick up or reject the call. Still not understanding what was going on, he asked her to pick up the call. She leaned forward and simply kissed him. He pushed her away, but at an inappropriate body location. Things got awkward between them. Even though it was out of the blue, it was his first kiss. When Luo was still young, he wanted to become a wizard so badly. He learned that staying a virgin for 25 years would enable him to practice magic. He was lost in his thoughts about how the realization dawned on him that he did not realize that his mother was on the call through the lady. It was at this point that he realized that the girl was his phone. The mother's voice comes out of her while she takes on his character. The mother lashes out at him and instructs him to help her check out an apartment close to his place before leaving the phone call. Seeing the transformation of his phone, he concludes that his dream must have come true and that he possesses some superpower. With the conclusion that his ability might be to turn objects into girls, he takes one of his dolls, thinking it will also become a human being. It failed woefully. Luo turned to the phone and asked her about certain files on the computer to confirm she was truly his phone. She perfectly gave the information out. He asked her name after they had both sat down. Since she was previously a phone, she did not have a name and asked him to give her one. Thinking about his favorite anime female character, he named her Nikki. Nikki was excited that she now had a name given to her by her master. He felt surprisingly happy. Someone tries to open the door. The only person who had access to the apartment was his mother. He knows his mother will not understand him. He quickly took her into his wardrobe and asked her to put herself in standby mode. He closes the wardrobe and goes to open the door for a rather young woman, whom he calls his mother. His mother asked him why he looked flustered. He simply lied, saying that he was dressing up and had just woken up. He was getting more awkward and asked why she was there. Luo's mother began to be suspicious. She sniffed the room and could smell a girl's fragrance. Scared he might be caught, he lied, saying it was his detergent. Luo was happy that Nikki was well hidden, only to discover one of her shoes right outside the wardrobe where he had locked her. He quietly tried to retrieve the shoe, as it would be unexplainable if his mother found it. He was, however, caught in the process. He quickly knelt in front of the wardrobe with the shoe behind him. It was obvious that he was hiding something. She picked one of his favorite dolls and threw it against the wall opposite him. Luo, who loves his dolls so much that he had jumped to catch and save the doll, forgot he was hiding something. He noticed that there was silence behind him. turned around to see his mother holding the shoe, and demanded an explanation. To make matters worse, Nikki's clothes were caught between the wardrobe door and the door, which prompted his mother to open the wardrobe and finally catch her. Rather than lashing out at him, she started crying, telling him to be a man. She had gotten it all wrong. Luo tried to explain it to her, but she would not agree. Luo had never been with a girl. Now he had brought home a cute girl. Nikki, trying to protect her master, told his mother not to scold him as he did not kidnap her as per her theory. Calling him master, the mother thought she was using her and wanted to send him to an asylum. He quickly lied, saying that she was his girlfriend, which his mother actually bought. She reminded him of the task she had told him to do about his neighbor. She conversed a little with Nikki before leaving, not without throwing a pack of sexual protection at her son, who blushed seriously. He threw it away, only for it to be picked up by Nikki, who thinks it is chocolate. Luo collected it from her and told her it was not a good thing. He began to feel hungry, as he had slept the previous night on an empty stomach. He took a look at the noodles he had prepared to eat the previous night but had become soggy. He decided to make another. Nikki also pointed out that she was hungry as well. At first, he was not sure whether she could eat or had inner organs like humans, as she was a phone. He checks her mouth. The closeness makes him blush, though. He concludes that since she is human, she should be able to eat. He introduced her to a large assortment of snacks, telling her to pick anything of her choice. After selecting a snack, she begins to eat the nylon wrapper and complains that it is not edible. Luo tears the package open, telling her to eat only the content in the package, which she turns out to like so much. He picked up a jelly snack, which he thought she would like. As he was about to give her a kiss, a bright light shone around her. He adjusted his eyes after the super bright light had gone, only to see that Nikki had gone back to being a phone. He puts the phone on the table and starts to think about what could be the reason it has turned back. He began to think back and form theories on how his power actually works. He noted that he can't turn two at a time. Also, it seems like a time limit is attached to each transformation. He wrote all that he had noted inside a book that he had named Luo Shen Shi's Secret. He remembers that the first time it happened was after he woke up, and he added another theory that each transformation happens after 24 hours after midnight. He tries to practice this theory and decides to go to bed, as it is already 2 hours past midnight. In his bed, he could not sleep and was twitching from side to side. He sat up and wanted to wear himself out in order to sleep. He thought of different activities, including nasty ones, but remembered Nikki and stopped. He took one of his dolls and laid down on the bed. Soon enough, the kind of bright light that had happened earlier happened again. Luo sat up only to see another beautiful and quite busy girl lying beside him. The girl complains that he is too noisy. It didn't take him long to discover that it was his blanket that had transformed this time. He quickly checked the time, and his theory was proved. The time was just a few minutes past midnight. The blanket called him to sleep and hugged him super tight, just like she is used to as a blanket. He felt choked and quickly freed himself. She is a strong grub despite her innocent looks. She went back to bed and wanted to sleep since her master was not ready to sleep. Luo instead sat on his bed, thinking about his power. He felt a little bit cheated, as his power was time-bound and he could not use it as he pleased. He had planned to turn Nikki down but had miscalculated. The blanket girl woke up to meet her master weeping and inquired why he was crying. He blamed her for coming instead of Nikki. Rather than feeling sad or any negative emotions for his words, she was full of smiles and hugged him from behind, pressing her body against him, which made him blush. She once again invites him to come and sleep, which he quickly rejects. She thought he now hated her look. Luo explained to her that she was now a girl and they couldn't sleep together again. She got back on the bed and simply told him to come and sleep. He obliged and went to bed. On the bed, he confirms to her that she does not have a name. He then gave her the name Beiji because she was a blanket. He begins to feel a sense of connection with her. Beiji told her it might be because he did not beat her, unlike her mother. Luo reasons that she was referring to folding and beating dust out, which he was lazy to do. She asked him to promise that he would never beat her, and he did. They soon go back to bed, with Beiji clinging on to him. He wondered how he was going to sleep that way, with all her body pressed on him. Suddenly, the light appeared again, and Beiji was turned back into a blanket. He wondered why the time limit was super fast this time alone. Not only that, but it also makes him exhausted and he suddenly collapses. He woke up at daybreak, clinging to his blanket. He went into the toilet and wondered what would happen if it clocked midnight while he was in there. His right hand was the trigger, and it does not seem to work on any other part of his body. He wonders if it has an effect on living things while preparing his breakfast. He soon settles down to start eating. As he started to eat, he noticed the next door, which had been vacant for a long time, was noisy. He suddenly remembered the task his mother had given him. He had completely forgotten. He left his food and went outside. He saw the house movers and greeted them before returning back in. He had not expected to have a tenant next door. Luo heard a disruption inside his house. A cat showed up in front of him. He patted the cat and wondered where it came from. A high schooler came looking for the cat, whose name was Coffee. She apologizes for the cat's intrusion. She explained that they had just moved in and she had been a little messy since morning. She was the new tenant who had just moved in. Since she was running late for school, she pleaded with him to take care of her cat, which he agreed to. She appreciates him before running off to school. Luo was quite excited, as he had always wanted to be a guy with a cat. He picked a stuffed cat for Coffee to play with. Coffee truly loves the stuffed cat, as it will not stop cuddling and playing with it. Luo soon called it dinner. Coffee rushed to his food. He seems quite hungry. It starts to lick its paws after eating. Luo finds the cat and the action very cute and addictive to watch. Coffee suddenly started to feel weird. Luo deduces that he wants to use the toilet. He brought him a box to do that in. He imagined how such a cute cat would defecate something so smelly. He quickly disposed of it. He soon finds out that taking care of a pet is tiring, as he gradually feels tired. He thinks about whether his power could turn living things as well. He felt it would be cool to have a cat girl, especially one in a maid's uniform. He decided to give it a try and turn it into a girl by midnight. He set his alarm for 11:59 p.m. He wonders, though, why the girl has not come back yet, as it is already late. The alarm went off. He called Coffee to himself in order to turn her into a girl. While Coffee was on the way to him, he slipped and tripped on the stuffed cat, which sent the stuffed cat flying. In a bid to catch the stuffed cat, he touches the stuffed cat with his right hand, which immediately turns it into a girl. The cat girl who came with a tail thanked Luo for allowing them to stay at his home. He told her not to be carefree, as she was now a girl, when she wagged her tail. Luo patted her before asking what her name was. She replies that she is usually called Mimi by her master. He figures out that by master, she meant the girl next door, which means his power retains the soul of the object. He gained permission to touch her ear, which was that of a cat. He touches her tail as well, but it results in a teary-eyed girl. She told him she doesn't like to be touched in the tail. Luo apologized and made up by inviting her to come and eat. He offered her his breakfast of a snack and milk. Mimi, being a cat, starts to lick the meal with his tongue. Luo stopped her and taught her the proper way to eat, as she was now a girl. She heard herself in the process of eating the snacks and was crying. Luo calms her down and tells her to stop crying. Luo helped her bandage up the finger she had hurt, which she was grateful for. Moments later, Luo lay on his back on his bed, exhausted. The cat and the girl cat had been running around the house. Cats are nocturnal animals, but to him, they were just too energetic. They soon chased themselves to his table, which triggered him. Holding them by their hair, he looked around the house. It has been turned into a messy field. The earlier cute cats are now quite horrible. Since Mimi was the talking one, he asked her to explain himself. At first, she tried to buy her way out with cuteness but was caught. She eventually put the entire blame on Coffee. Unknown to him, Coffee had slipped through and was on the table he had stayed on before. The cat took one of his dolls, and despite trying to be persuaded, it still threw the doll off the table before jumping on him. Luo quickly catches the doll, as it loves his dolls so much. Mimi announced the arrival of her master even though she was not yet in Luo and thought of reasons why the girl would be that late.
Luo Shenxi, the main character, felt a deep sense of unhappiness upon witnessing Mimi's disappearance. He found himself contemplating whether the events of the previous day were merely a dream. However, as he sat in the room, unable to find Mimi and coffee, he realized that the incident was undeniably real. Luo took a moment to gather his thoughts and began writing something down. He wrote that there seemed to be a time limit associated with the power he possessed, but the exact duration remained unknown. Moreover, he observed that the power did not seem to have any physical effects on his body. However, he noted that if the owner, presumably himself, were to abandon the power, it would vanish. His gaze then shifted towards his phone. With determination, he resolved to bring back Yi Kong, who had also disappeared. Luo couldn't help but feel a sense of discontentment, knowing that he was unable to retrieve Mimi. To ensure he didn't miss any crucial moment, he set an alarm. Nightfall arrived, and Luo was awake, his phone by his side. He called out to Yi Kong, striking his phone. This was the power he obtained in his previous chapter in his dream. Miraculously, Yi Kong emerged and expressed her joy at reuniting with her master, referring to Luo. She warmly embraced him, overjoyed to see him again, and Luo reciprocated her happiness. Yi Kong believed that Luo had forgotten about her, but he reassured her that he could never forget. However, as Yi Kong settled atop Luo, he couldn't bear the discomfort caused by her weight and asked her to get off, explaining that her presence was crushing his lower abdomen. In the meantime, Luo excused himself to use the bathroom, where he was taken aback when Yi Kong offered her assistance. However, he politely declined her help, assuring her that he would be finished soon. When Luo emerged from the bathroom, Yi Kong comforted him, urging him not to feel disheartened about Mimi's absence. It was then revealed that Yi Kong existed in the form of a phone. Luo reiterated his commitment never to abandon her and requested that she stop referring to him as master, to avoid any misconception since he wished to go on a date with her. Instead, he asked her to address him as brother. Although Yi Kong initially struggled to grasp the concept of a date, Luo patiently explained it to her. He felt a sense of happiness as Yi Kong began calling him brother. Luo and Yi Kong set out on their much-anticipated date, brimming with excitement. Both were thrilled that the day they had been eagerly awaiting had finally arrived. Little did they know that this outing would take an unexpected turn. As they approached Peerless Stinky Tofu's, their hearts sank at the sight of a seemingly never-ending queue. The foul odor emanating from the place made Luo's stomach churn, and he couldn't fathom why anyone would willingly subject themselves to such an experience. Apologizing to Yi Kong for the undesirable option, he suggested going elsewhere for food. Yi Kong, displaying her easygoing nature, assured Luo that she would happily eat whatever he chose. So, they redirected their steps towards a paratha stall nearby, hoping to satiate their hunger there. Luo promptly ordered 2 portions of piping hot paratha filled with delectable ingredients like egg, ham, and meat floss. As he handed a portion to Yi Kong, he warned her to be cautious as it was still steaming. With each bite, she savored the delicious flavors, expressing her satisfaction. Mid-meal, their tranquility was interrupted by a stranger who approached them, seeking their attention. They turned around to find a young lady holding a shiny object before them. Yi Kong's eyes lit up with admiration, revealing her fondness for all things glittering. Luo mused to himself about how girls seem to possess an innate weakness for shiny objects. Curious, he inquired about the price of the object. To his surprise, the lady informed him that the original price was 250, but she was currently offering a discount, reducing it to 150. Utilizing her marketing prowess and aware of Yi Kong's inclination, she urged Luo to give it a try, citing Yi Kong's affinity for the item. Yielding to the lady's persuasive tactics, Luo acquiesced and purchased the ring. Yi Kong eagerly took the ring and attempted to slide it onto her finger, but on the wrong one. The lady promptly corrected her, explaining that it was customary to wear such a ring only after marriage. Luo was taken aback by the mention of marriage, the word echoing in his mind. Despite the sudden intrusion of these thoughts, Luo managed to acquire the ring. However, as soon as the lady received their payment, she hastily fled, sensing the approach of urban management authorities. Determined to retrieve his change, Luo sprinted after her, but his efforts were in vain as she swiftly evaded capture. Realizing the futility of the pursuit, Luo urged Yi Kong to let it go, considering the lost money a valuable lesson. Fortunately, he still had the ring in his possession, a tangible reminder of their encounter. Luo and Yi Kong arrived at a peculiar place called 7 Times Hotel. Yi Kong was unfamiliar with this location and questioned their presence there. Sensing the unsuitability of the place for their date, Luo suggested they leave promptly. Just as they were about to make their exit, Yi Kong noticed a lady who had previously visited Luo's house. It turned out to be Luo's own parents. Panic swept over Luo, realizing that if his parents discovered he had taken a girl out, he would be in deep trouble. Determined to avoid any confrontation, he swiftly pulled Yi Kong away, finding a hiding spot until his parents passed by. In the midst of their hiding, Luo and Yi Kong entered the hotel to inquire about available rooms. The person in charge informed them that only a large room remained. Despite the unusual circumstances, they decided to take the room. Once inside the room, Yi Kong curiously questioned Luo about their whereabouts and why they hadn't greeted the woman they had seen earlier. Luo explained that his own mother had also ventured out on a date, and interrupting them would cause unnecessary trouble. Swiftly changing the subject, he asked Yi Kong if she was tired and suggested they rest. The room itself was adorned with beauty and charm. Yi Kong, finding the bed exceptionally comfortable, invited Luo to join her. However, Luo's mind raced with discomfort, feeling as if he had entered the wrong place. His anxiety grew, causing him to break out in a profuse sweat while his face flushed red. Concerned, Yi Kong asked if he was feeling hot. Reacting quickly, Luo stood up and turned on the air conditioner. Surprised by her consideration, he couldn't help but feel taken aback. In a moment of unexpected candor, Yi Kong suggested that he might want to take a shower to refresh himself, given his perspiration. Her remark caught Luo off guard, leaving him astonished by her thoughtfulness. Luo attempted to decline Yi Kong's offer to shower, citing the lackluster facilities at the hotel and expressing his intention to shower once they returned home. However, a troubling thought crossed his mind. Yi Kong had been his phone all along, potentially having access to his most personal secrets, including moments spent in the bathroom, showers, or even watching television. The notion left Luo feeling uneasy and exposed. To his relief, Yi Kong reassured him that she would never divulge any of his secrets. Luo proceeded to lie down on the bed, hoping for some peace and solitude. Yet, Yi Kong had something to discuss with him. She expressed her desire to be alone with him, away from the constant conflicts with Beji and others. Then, unexpectedly, she requested a kiss, positioning herself in anticipation. Overwhelmed and unsure of how to respond, Luo swiftly redirected the conversation, claiming that it was time for them to leave the hotel. Meanwhile, Yi Kong made it known that she genuinely loved Luo, referring to him as her big brother, as he had requested she call him. Luo, taken aback by her confession, proceeded to the hotel reception for checkout. The receptionist inquired about the girl who had accompanied him. Luo insisted that she had already left. However, the receptionist remained skeptical, as he had been present throughout and had not seen any woman leaving the hotel. Luo left the hotel, making a firm vow to himself to avoid such establishments in the future. Luo was in his room, frustrated by the fact that his power was rendered ineffective due to his bandaged hands. He couldn't make anything he touched work. However, this meant that he didn't have to worry about accidentally activating his superpower while his hands were wrapped. As Luo was going through things on his computer, he came across a post that caught his attention. The post mentioned that his boyfriend had bought a ring for someone, but she had sold it to a tall and handsome pedestrian. The post requested anyone who encountered this person to take notice. The image of the ring was also included, and Luo recognized it as the same kind he had purchased from a woman before. Curious, Luo decided to investigate. While walking, he spotted the woman he had bought the ring from previously. He called out to her, reminding her that he was the one who had purchased the ring from her the day before. She confirmed and asked him to return the ring. However, Luo's intention was to return the ring to her, not retrieve it. He handed it back, and to his surprise, the woman returned the money he had paid as well. She apologized for inconveniencing him by coming to return the ring personally. After Luo returned the ring, he questioned the woman about why she had mentioned in her online post that he was alone when he bought the ring. To his confusion, she claimed she hadn't seen any girl with him. He had been alone. Luo couldn't comprehend what was happening or why she didn't remember the girl's presence. Meanwhile, Luo returned to the hotel where he had been with Yi Kong the previous day. He informed the receptionist that his backpack was missing, mentioning that he couldn't recall if he had brought it out with him or not. To assist Luo, the receptionist showed him the camera footage, revealing that he hadn't been carrying any bag while leaving. Luo apologized for the trouble and decided to thoroughly check his belongings once he arrived home. Before leaving, Luo asked the receptionist if he had been alone, and the receptionist confirmed that he had. Frustrated by the consistent lack of memory from others, Luo left immediately. Back at home, Luo took a shower. He noticed that memories related to the girls he encountered seemed to disappear for others once a certain time limit had passed. Determined not to dwell on it, he pushed the thought aside. As he reached out to grab his underwear, he realized it was missing. Suddenly, a woman appeared, seemingly materializing due to the underwear Luo had touched without the bandages on his hands. Luo was taken aback when the lady in front of him expressed that she could speak. It was at that moment that Luo realized he was standing completely naked before her. Flustered, he shouted at her to leave while desperately trying to cover himself. The lady, referring to him as "Master," assured him there was no need to be afraid since they had been intimate before. However, Luo insisted that she leave immediately. As she turned to exit the room, she asked Luo if he truly didn't need her. Firmly, Luo rejected her offer, stating that he didn't require her assistance. His worst fear had just materialized because he had been caught completely off guard. Once Luo finished bathing, he cautiously opened the door only to find that the lady was no longer in the room. He peered out the window and spotted her standing there. Curious, he approached her and questioned why she was outside. She expressed a desire to know about everything happening in the outside world, urging Luo to explain it all to her. Unhappy with her current predicament of being confined to the wardrobe or inside pants, she pleaded with Luo to let her out occasionally to breathe. However, Luo argued that if he were to randomly let his underwear out to breathe, he would be labeled a pervert. Reluctantly, he refused her request. She reached out and touched him tenderly, beseeching him just once more. Finally, Luo agreed and suggested she stay in the communal area for the night. Delighted by his decision, she kissed Luo on the cheek. Without wasting any more time, she excitedly dragged Luo outside to play. However, Luo insisted that he first needed to put on some clothes. As they ventured outside, Luo found himself walking at a slower pace while she hurried ahead. She urged Luo to pick up the pace, wondering if he was growing weak and unable to handle the walk. Luo couldn't help but find her choice of words strange, as such commonplace sentences sounded peculiar when spoken by her. Realizing that she didn't have a name, Luo decided to call her Gray. To his surprise, Gray didn't mind the name he had chosen for her. She expressed that her master could call her any name he pleased. Her attitude reminded him of the Blanket Princess. Standing in front of a vending machine that dispensed drinks automatically, Luo explained to Gray what it was. Initially unaware, she quickly grasped the concept after Luo's explanation. Curiosity piqued, Luo decided to try out the drinks, but Gray declined, as they were merely ordinary beverages with alcohol. As they sat down together, Gray expressed her desire to not return home that night. She implored Luo to stay where they were. Despite acknowledging the potential risks of falling ill due to the cold night, Luo insisted that they must return home. Gray, lying close to him, claimed she was already drunk and suggested they remain there. Unwilling to sleep on the streets with her, Luo commanded her to obediently accompany him back home. Unfortunately, exhaustion overwhelmed Luo, and he dozed off. He was awakened by the presence of two elderly women who questioned why he was sleeping in that location. Luo could hardly believe what had transpired. Luo lay on his bed, engrossed in reading a book about superpowers. He couldn't help but wonder why his own superpower was different from the ones described in the book. He believed that his power could potentially be upgraded in later stages, allowing the appearance of sailor uniform girls, mecha girls, and other abilities, but at the cost of consuming a large amount of his power. A sense of awkwardness washed over him as he contemplated his unique superpower. Suddenly, the sound of a car horn caught his attention. Glancing out of the window, Luo spotted a group of men attempting to break into cars. He became suspicious of their intentions, suspecting them to be car thieves. Determined to investigate, Luo decided to head down and get a closer look. The men were all wearing masks, and one of them impatiently urged another to hurry up with opening a car door. The latter insisted that he needed more time, stating that rushing would only hinder his progress. Known to the thieves, the surveillance camera on the road had already malfunctioned, and the security guard stationed there was fast asleep. Sensing that they might be under observation, the thieves hurried. From his hidden vantage point, Luo observed the unfolding scene. He knew they were car thieves, but it seemed too late to call the police. Just as the thief managed to open the car door, Luo sprang into action with remarkable speed, knocking down all of the criminals. Shortly thereafter, the police arrived at the scene and arrested the car thieves. Meanwhile, back at home, Luo sat at his computer and stumbled upon a news article reporting the capture of the main perpetrators behind several recent car thefts in the area. The news segment even displayed footage of the captives. The thieves described how a mobile phone had seemingly flown through the air, transforming into a person who swiftly incapacitated them. The criminals, bewildered and disoriented, claimed to have no recollection of what had transpired, as they had been swiftly rendered unconscious. Meanwhile, Luo found himself unexpectedly overwhelmed with a sense of being a hero. He hadn't anticipated that his superpower could be used in such a way, and the realization left him with a feeling of pride. Furthermore, he discovered that he now had control over the timing of Yuzora's transformation. Yuzora was present with him and complained about feeling too hot, asking if she could remove her clothes. Shocked by her request, Luo sternly reminded her that she was a girl and couldn't casually undress. Yuzora fell silent for a moment before pointing out that Luo had previously studied female fashion in order to find clothes that would help her stay cool. Luo was left speechless, realizing that Yuzora had misinterpreted his intentions. Gathering himself, he stood up and suggested they go for a swim, hoping to distract Yuzora from the misunderstanding. Luo and Yuzora ventured out to go swimming, their hands intertwined. Yuzora had never experienced swimming before, and she expressed her curiosity to try it out. However, Luo was concerned about potential damage to Yuzora, considering she was a phone. He reassured her that he would teach her how to swim safely. Realizing that Yuzora didn't have a swimsuit, Luo decided to buy one for her. He entered a shop that a lady had called him into. Inside, he was presented with a variety of swimsuits to choose from. Yuzora was captivated by the swimwear she saw, enthusiastically exclaiming that they looked exactly like the ones in her Big Brother phone. The girl selling the swimsuits overheard Yuzora's comment and appeared confused, asking for clarification. Acting swiftly, Luo explained that Yuzora meant the swimsuits were incredibly beautiful and resembled works of art. He whispered to the Yuzora not to mention anything about the photos on his phone. She understood, and so, the girl proceeded to show Luo various swimsuits, claiming they were the hottest and most fashionable choices available. However, Luo didn't think they would suit Yuzora well and expressed his disinterest. He looked up and requested the swimsuit that was placed on the top shelf. The girl complimented Luo, calling him handsome and praising his excellent taste. She revealed that the particular swimsuit he had chosen was a limited edition for couples. He purchased it. Just as Luo turned around, he heard Yuzora calling his name. He looked at her and was amazed by her appearance, stating that the swimsuit looked cute on her. Filled with excitement, they headed out to enjoy their swim together. Luo encountered a lady named Shin Shaolon, and they started chatting. As their conversation continued, Yuzora began to feel neglected, sensing that Luo had forgotten about her. Shin wondered when this damned fat nerd, referring to Luo, had gotten a girlfriend and brought her along, seemingly forgetting about Yuzora. Realizing his oversight, Luo quickly introduced Shin to Yuzora. Shin Shaolon appeared happy that Luo had brought along a younger girl to swim, but Luo tried to explain that she had misunderstood the situation. Shin, however, wasn't willing to listen to any explanations. Reflecting on their childhood, Luo and Shin Shaolon had always been inseparable. They were constantly together, regardless of what they were doing. During their younger years, Shin had even promised to be Luo's bride when they grew up. However, Luo rejected the idea, insisting that he would always treat her as his younger sister. Returning to the present, Luo couldn't consider Shin's childhood promise as a confession. She suggested that he should forget about it since time had passed. Shin introduced herself to Yuzora, and they exchanged pleasantries. Shin warned Yuzora not to be led astray by Luo, referring to him as a real pervert, and if he ever dared to bully her in the future, Yuzora should let her know, and she would take care of it for her. Yuzora assured Shin that Luo wouldn't bully her. Shin wondered if Yuzora had been brainwashed, believing so much in Luo Shenchi. Just then, Shin's friends called out her name, indicating that she should come and play with them. Before leaving, she approached Luo and told him to treat Yuzora well, warning him that she wouldn't let him off if he didn't. Yuzora jokingly complimented Luo for being so popular. At that moment, Luo placed his hands on Yuzora's shoulders and asked her if she truly wanted to be his girlfriend. Without hesitation, she replied that she truly wanted to be with him forever. However, almost immediately after saying so, she retreated back into her phone form. Luo assured her that he would patiently wait for her. Luo was asleep when he received a call from his mother. He groggily answered the phone, denying that he was still in bed. His mother had called him to ask for his help in selling a car that she had bought a few years ago. The car's warranty had expired, and it had been sitting unused for quite some time. Luo reluctantly got out of bed and returned home. He received a call informing him that his mother was preparing to buy a new car. When Luo arrived at the car, he had his hand bandaged to protect it from further incident occurring. He couldn't understand why his mother suddenly wanted to change the car when she had always liked it. He expressed his confusion, mentioning that everything has a life and cannot be changed so easily. His mother, overhearing his words, dismissed his concerns and instructed him to fix the car. Luo opened the car's bonnet and his mother asked him what the problem was. She couldn't identify the issue herself since she hadn't been able to drive the car after it broke down. She had taken it to a repair store in the US, and they had informed her that the car model was old, spare parts were difficult to find, and repair costs were expensive. Luo touched the car and noticed that it had indeed been used for a long time. He realized that his mother had been driving the car for years without even having basic knowledge about cars. Luo was not a professional car mechanic, so he didn't know which part of the car was broken. He sighed, unsure of what to do next. He wanted his mother to leave the scene and tried to gently push her away. He suggested that she go home, rest, and enjoy some nice juice and air conditioning while he checked if he could fix the car. His mother knew that Luo couldn't repair the car, and she tried to remove his hands from her shoulders. She recalled that he had failed his practical class when he was a child. However, Luo reassured her not to worry and insisted that he would fix it. Once his mother had left, Luo decided to remove the bandage from his hand to investigate the car. As soon as he removed the bandage and touched the car, it transformed into a girl. Luo was surprised to see that the girl recognized him. He gave her a bottle of water to drink, realizing that she was no longer a car and couldn't consume gasoline. She accepted the water and drank it, causing her to cough and spit something out. Observing her reaction, Luo wondered if that object was the part that had caused the car to malfunction, and she had coughed it up just now. Feeling grateful for his assistance, the girl asked Luo to let her sit on his lap as a way to repay him. Luo shouted in surprise at her unexpected request. Luo gently reminded her that she was now a human, no longer just a car. However, she couldn't help but ask Luo if he despised her because of her age. Trying to alleviate her sadness, Luo assured her that she was undoubtedly a beautiful girl. He reminisced that she had been with him since he was about 4 years old, which was a remarkable 14 years ago. She worried about being scrapped after the upcoming annual review, as she believed that once created, they dedicated their entire existence to their masters. Hearing her words, Luo felt a pang of sadness. She reached out and held his cheek, telling him not to be sad. She expressed her surprise at being turned into a human all of a sudden. She had always referred to Luo as idiot son. She playfully asked Luo to spend some time with her before she was eventually scrapped. Concerned about her well-being, Luo wondered if she could move around easily since she wasn't in good health. She reassured him that her entire body felt wonderful after his treatment. Luo's nerves were a bit frayed as he couldn't obtain his driver's license when he turned 18. Just then, he took out his phone and texted Yuzora, asking her to help him check the details regarding the scrapping of a car after 15 years. Speaking softly to her, he offered her the opportunity to accompany him from now on since he now had a license and would need a car in the future. Luo suggested that if she followed him, he would transform her into a human whenever she faced difficulties in the future, so she wouldn't have to worry about being scrapped again. She was amazed and thanked Luo for his kind offer. Suddenly, a wave of sleepiness washed over Luo, and she transformed back into a car. Surprised by the sudden turn of events, Luo realized that only an hour had passed since he last used his superpower. He wondered if the consumption rate of his superpower was proportionate to the size and complexity of the object, or if perhaps his power involved using part of his life force to transform objects into living beings. These thoughts swirled in his mind as he rose to his feet, unable to fully explain what had just happened. Just then, Luo's mother appeared and asked him why he was taking so long. Upon seeing the car miraculously fixed, she was astonished that Luo had managed to repair it. Luo took the opportunity and asked his mother if she could give him the car since she was planning to buy a new one. His mother agreed, mentioning that he needed the car for his dates with his girlfriend. Luo shouted, "Girlfriend," and wondered if his mother remembered Yuzora. Luo's mother was furious. She angrily questioned Luo, calling him a rascal and doubting her memory. Luo didn't dare to argue with his mother, but he explained that he was simply surprised that she still remembered the girl he had met at his place. In response, his mother grabbed his ear and asked if he had broken up with her. Luo assured her that they were doing fine and that he was planning to introduce Yuzora to his grandpa soon. Deep down, Luo's mother had always known that it would be difficult for him to find a girlfriend. Now that he had found one, she believed it would be a shame to miss this opportunity. Luo hopped into his car and drove away, lost in thought. As he drove, he couldn't help but wonder how his mother knew Yuzora. Could it be that his mother had some physical contact with Yuzora? Luo decided that he needed to find out. While he was still driving, he spotted a little kitten that resembled Mimi. He bent down, touched the kitten's head, and thinking if it was injured. Feeling sorry for the little kitten, he decided to take it home. Once he arrived home, he set the kitten down to play. Little did Luo know that this cute kitten he had brought back would later put him in an embarrassing situation in the future. Luo asked Yuzora to accompany him to the supermarket to pick up some things, but she declined, saying that she wanted to stay home with the kitten because she thought it would be scared. She held the kitten in her arms and named it Mimi due to its resemblance. Despite the joy that having a cat brought to most people, Luo didn't feel the same happiness. He was preoccupied with other thoughts. Luo was studying on his computer, praying not to fail his final exams or have to repeat the grade. Unbeknownst to Luo, the bandage he had used to wrap his injured hands had come loose. The curious little kitten noticed this and playfully tugged at the loose end, accidentally exposing Luo's hand. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and Luo was taken aback. He couldn't understand why there was a sudden burst of light. When he turned his gaze towards his computer, he saw a girl sitting beside him with his hands resting on her lap. Luo was shocked to the core. Luo winced in pain as she delivered a powerful kick to his cheek, leaving it red and him sprawled on the floor. He knew she had done it intentionally, so he asked her why. She claimed it was an accident, but Luo wasn't convinced. Brushing off the incident, he got back on his feet. Realizing that she still didn't have a name, he decided to name her Mousy. However, she replied that she didn't need a name, showing more interest in her current appearance than her identity. Luo suspected that Mousy might be a tough and independent individual, so he respected her wishes and left her alone for the time being. He had other pressing matters to attend to, primarily his results, and he didn't want any distractions that could potentially be embarrassing. Meanwhile, Mousy seemed reluctant to leave the table, refusing to budge. Attempting to coax her away from the table, Luo asked if she wanted to see her reflection. He gestured towards a mirror, hoping it would entice her to move. Finally, Mousy complied, stepping down from the table. Luo felt relieved that she had left her perch, giving him space to focus. He decided to check his results, only to realize that the mouse he intended to use had transformed into her. He turned his gaze towards Mousy, who was examining her reflection in the mirror. To his horror, she began to lift her skirt. Luo shouted at her, emphasizing that it was inappropriate for girls to expose themselves in front of boys. Mousy paid no heed to Luo's warning. Frustrated, Luo called her over and pondered how he could make use of her in this new form. She lacked the typical scroll wheel and buttons of a conventional mouse, leaving Luo puzzled about how to operate his computer. Lost in thought, Mousy interrupted him with her words, suggesting that he couldn't control his instincts upon seeing her cute transformation. Luo dismissed her accusation, explaining that he had accidentally transformed her from a mouse into a girl and now needed her assistance to check his exam results. However, Mousy believed he had malicious intentions towards her. She declared that Luo need not worry about using the computer with the mouse and offered to help him. But her help came at a price. Due to Luo's habit of vigorously clicking the mouse while playing games, nearly torturing her, Mousy insisted on receiving a massage before she would assist him. Luo inquired about the type of massage Mousy was referring to. She expressed that Luo seemed to have a great time using her as a mouse but was now unwilling to give her a massage. Feeling somewhat awkward, Luo explained that it was because boys and girls shouldn't be too physically close. Curious about the kind of massage Mousy wanted, he asked if she preferred a Chinese chair massage or a Japanese one. Mousy left the choice up to Luo, as long as it felt good to her. Luo was unsure of his massage technique, as he had only massaged his grandpa and mom in the past. Randomly selecting one, he began massaging Mousy. She seemed to be enjoying it and encouraged him to use more strength. This strange situation made Luo feel even more awkward, as Mousy appeared completely defenseless. In his mind, Luo sarcastically thought of using useless strength as he applied pressure to her leg. Mousy shouted that he was not massaging the right place, but Luo told her to endure it, claiming it was a Chinese-style leg massage. Despite her protests, Luo continued massaging her legs. Mousy persisted in her cries, stating that she couldn't bear it any longer. In an attempt to gain Mousy's cooperation, Luo informed her that he wouldn't allow her to operate his computer if she didn't feel good during the massage. It was at that moment that Mousy realized Luo had been intentionally playing a trick on her. Outraged, she shouted at him for his audacity. Since Mousy was clearly unhappy with the situation, Luo decided to stop the massage. Mousy complained that her throat was parched from crying out, adding that none of this would have happened if Luo had been obedient from the beginning. Luo apologized to her, expressing remorse for his actions. Mousy eventually agreed to help him check his results while Luo controlled the keyboard. She instructed him to place his hand on her head and move it around as he would normally use a mouse. Luo followed her instructions. Closing his eyes, Luo silently prayed to God, hoping he wouldn't have to repeat the year. As he searched for his results, a surge of joy and happiness overwhelmed him. He had managed to pass the exam. Now his mother wouldn't have to worry about him repeating a grade. Luo proclaimed himself a king, even though he had barely scraped by. Mousy sighed, commenting on how challenging it was to serve such a master. Luo found himself facing the biggest challenge of his life, summer homework. A series of daunting books lay before him, and he felt overwhelmed, not knowing where to begin. He was supposed to participate in a summer social practice, but he couldn't even write a single word. Frustration filled his mind as he absent-mindedly scratched his head, observing a cat nearby, leisurely enjoying itself. Luo couldn't help but envy the carefree life of a cat, where food and shelter were provided, and napping was an art form. In that moment, he daydreamed about being reincarnated as a cat in his next life, longing for a life so seemingly effortless. He let out a sigh and lowered his head in defeat. Luo felt like he couldn't go on any longer. He believed his IQ was far too low, and his lack of talent in studying only exacerbated his difficulties. He wished someone could lend him a helping hand. Tears welled up in his eyes as he found himself overwhelmed with the challenges he faced. Just as he was about to give up, his eyes fell upon a pen lying on the table, and an idea sparked in his mind. What if he could find a pen buddy who could assist him with his homework? The worst part was that Luo didn't even know how to answer a seemingly simple question. All he could think about was food. The pen he held in his hand had been his trusted companion throughout his school years. With a sudden surge of determination, Luo decided to remove the bandage from his right hand. If the fountain pen, which had mysteriously transformed before, still possessed its magical powers, he would transform his homework into a companion who could help him complete the work effortlessly. As soon as Luo touched the pen, it began to transform. Startled, he watched as the pen morphed into a human figure. The newly formed lady called Luo a flunky master, introducing herself as an honest pen. Curious, she asked Luo what name he would give her. Finally, Luo had found an item that valued its own name. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to name her Lami, drawing inspiration from the brand of the fountain pen. Lami graciously accepted the name. Intrigued by the unexpected turn of events, Lami questioned Luo about why he had transformed her into a human form. Luo explained, desperately pleading for her assistance with his homework. He presented the assignment to Lami, who initially believed it would be a daunting task. To her surprise, the questions turned out to be relatively simple. However, Lamy refused to help him complete the work, asserting that it was his homework, not hers. Before considering his request, she insisted that he fulfill a condition. Luo nodded in agreement. Eager to discover Lamy's request, Luo inquired about her intentions. However, instead of offering to complete his homework, Lamy expressed her desire to teach him how to do it himself. Confused, Luo questioned why he had gone through the trouble of transforming her into human form if not to assist with his assignments. Lamy responded by explaining that it's not right to expect rewards without putting in any effort, emphasizing that everything has a price. She acknowledged her willingness to teach him but insisted that he must take responsibility for his own work. Luo wondered why he was being forced to do his homework on his own. Nevertheless, Luo asserted his authority, reminding Lamy that she was a fountain pen and he was her master. He commanded her to complete his homework for him. Unexpectedly, Lamy grabbed a ruler and gave Luo a stern slap, determined to use it to discipline him if he disobeyed. Realizing he couldn't challenge her, Luo reluctantly agreed to obey her instructions, vowing to no longer be lazy. He accepted Lamy's offer to teach him. Lamy began teaching him, but it didn't take long for Luo to shout with excitement, raising his hand in triumph, proclaiming that he had finally conquered the most challenging subject, mathematics. Teaching him proved to be a grueling task for Lamy, as Luo required a significant amount of energy and guidance. His academic abilities were far from exceptional, and Lamy grew increasingly frustrated. Exhausted, she abruptly stood up and went to sleep, leaving Luo to continue his studies on his own. Determined to surprise Lamy when she woke up, Luo decided to work on the subject he felt most confident in, biology. He reassured himself that it would be embarrassing for someone as academically capable as him to struggle with biology. However, he found it difficult to grasp the concepts and understand the material. Frustrated, Luo went to wake up Lamy, seeking her assistance with the biology assignment. To his surprise, Lamy forcefully pushed him onto the bed and positioned herself on top of him. Bewildered, Luo questioned her actions, to which she responded that she wanted to teach him biology. The next thing Luo knew, he woke up and realized he must have fallen asleep. He couldn't recall what had transpired after Lamy had gotten on top of him. He quickly remembered that he still had unfinished homework to attend to. Making his way to where the assignments were kept, Luo discovered that Lamy had indeed completed the work for him. Luo headed to his school, where he happened to run into one of his teachers. The teacher reminded him of the summer social practice job he had signed up for as a lifeguard in a waterfront park. However, the teacher informed him that the position had been temporarily cancelled. Assuring Luo not to worry, the teacher mentioned that he had arranged an alternative job as a cleaning staff member at a scenic spot. Disappointed, Luo didn't relish the idea of being a cleaner. He had hoped to be a lifeguard, envisioning himself as a brave and handsome hero. Despite his disappointment, Luo left the office and encountered Uncle Zhang, the person in charge of the social practice program. Uncle Zhang introduced himself, shaking Luo's hand, and handed him the cleaner's uniform, signaling the start of his new job. Under the scorching sun, Luo toiled outside, diligently performing his cleaning duties. As he worked, he spotted a familiar face, Zhang Yun, a girl he had known before. To his dismay, he noticed that she was being harassed by a guy who persisted in pestering her, holding her hand against her will. Luo mustered his courage and approached the scene, firmly gripping the guy's hand. He calmly explained that it was unbecoming of him to continue harassing Zhang Yun, given that they had broken up. In response, the guy belittled Luo, mocking him for being a mere cleaner and telling him to mind his own business. Unfazed, Luo proudly declared that, despite being a cleaner, he was also a staff member in that area and threatened to summon security to remove the guy if he persisted in his unreasonable behavior. Luo threw the broom he held at the guy, causing him to stumble and fall. Turning back to Zhang Yun, Luo asked if she was alright, surprised to see him in his cleaner's outfit. Scratching his head, Luo explained that it was a summer social practice arranged by the school, and it was his turn to volunteer as a cleaner for the day. Luo sensed that the guy who had been pestering Zhang Yun might return, so he offered to accompany her back if she didn't mind. Zhang Yun apologized for causing him trouble. As they sought shelter from the rain inside a car, a few seconds of silence passed between Luo and Zhang Yun. She realized that her clothes had become wet and worried about facing consequences for it. In a moment of vulnerability, she asked Luo if she could dry her clothes at his house. Zhang followed Luo to his small and slightly messy house. It was her first time visiting, and she expressed her gratitude for allowing her to come in and shelter from the rain. Luo warmly welcomed her and offered her a seat. He went to fetch a cup of water for Zhang to drink. As she noticed the adorable cat that Luo had, Zhang expressed her desire to have a pet like that. Realizing that Zhang might catch a cold if she continued wearing her wet clothes, Luo kindly suggested that she take a shower. He showed her the washroom and offered her some of his own clothes to change into, along with a bath towel. While Zhang went to the bathroom, Luo couldn't help but feel foolish for agreeing to her request and bringing her to his house. He couldn't understand why he had pretended to be a good person. Deciding to focus on something else, Luo began preparing a meal. Before Zhang could finish dressing up, Luo had already made noodles for them to eat. As they sat down to enjoy the meal, Zhang noticed the fountain pen she had given him on the table. She was surprised that Luo still had it and asked why he kept it. Luo expressed his appreciation for the pen, explaining how helpful it had been to him. Zhang was glad to hear that Luo found it useful. Once they finished eating, Zhang inquired about the bandages on Luo's hands, concerned that he might be injured. Luo quickly concocted a lie, claiming that he had a skin allergy and needed to apply medication, suggesting that he wash the dishes instead. Zhang, feeling comfortable around him and considering themselves to be close, insisted on washing the dishes herself. However, as Luo submerged his hands in the sink, Zhang shouted in alarm, fearing that his bandaged hand might get hurt. In that moment, the cat brushed against her leg, causing her slipper to slide off, and Luo swiftly caught her to prevent her from falling. Unfortunately, in the process, the bandage on Luo's hand came undone, revealing a small portion of the wet, exposed skin, and a small girl appeared. Zhang asked Luo for an explanation about the sudden appearance of the little girl. Luo promised to explain, on the condition that she would keep it a secret. Zhang agreed, and Luo began to share his extraordinary secret. He told her that he possessed a unique superpower. At first, Zhang thought he was exaggerating, claiming to have a superpower. However, in order to make her believe him, Luo showed her the little girl who had appeared, dressed in the same clothes Zhang had been wearing. "Doesn't this little girl look exactly like the clothes you were wearing?" Luo asked Zhang. The sight astonished her, and she began to accept that Luo was telling the truth. Intrigued, Zhang urged Luo to explain his superpower further. He revealed that anything he touched with his right hand would transform into a living being, specifically into a babe. Zhang couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was filled with a mixture of astonishment and disbelief. The clothes she had been wearing had been transformed into a living child. Realizing the potential implications of this power, Luo expressed concern that his secret might get out. He pleaded with Zhang to keep it a secret from everyone. However, Zhang found it ironic that someone who had once been nicknamed "delusional boy" would now wish to keep such an extraordinary ability hidden. Nevertheless, she agreed to keep his secret, respecting Luo's wishes. Curious about the fate of the little girl, Zhang questioned Luo about his plans for her. Luo reassured her that the girl would eventually transform back. Zhang checked the time and realized it was already midnight, making it difficult for her to return home. Concerned for her well-being, Luo suggested that she spend the night at his house. Zhang surprised Luo by suddenly asking him to be her boyfriend. Luo couldn't help but shout in dismay upon hearing Zhang's confession. It took him by surprise that she had actually liked him for quite some time. He wondered if he was becoming popular with girls. Luo questioned why Zhang had chosen this moment to reveal her feelings. Curiosity piqued, he asked her if there was a particular reason she wanted him to be her boyfriend. Zhang hesitated for a moment before sharing her reasons. She explained that if she stayed over at Luo's house as his girlfriend, her parents wouldn't scold her. Additionally, she had been bothered by numerous guys attempting to make advances towards her, and having Luo as her fake boyfriend would serve as a shield against such pestering. She further suggested that Luo should continue to act as her boyfriend even outside. Luo remained silent, processing Zhang's request. He realized that it was indeed a challenging one. Zhang, aware of the difficulty, admitted her apprehension, especially considering her past experiences with her ex-boyfriend, who seemed a little unhinged. After carefully considering her words, Luo agreed to help her whenever she needed such assistance. Zhang expressed her gratitude for his acceptance. As for the little girl, she still lacked a name. Luo decided to name her Yi, which had the same pronunciation as clothes. When Zhang learned of this, she asked Luo why he had chosen that name. Luo explained that he had a simple way of giving names and had chosen Yi because it was easy to remember. With midnight approaching, they decided it was time to go to sleep. The next morning, Zhang had already prepared herself to return home. Luo intended to drive her back, but she assured him that it was unnecessary since the weather had cleared up. However, Luo still advised her to be careful on the road. Before leaving, Zhang leaned in close and whispered to Luo, asking if Yi had transformed back. To Luo's surprise, Zhang retained her memories of Yi, as she had been transformed from the clothes she was wearing. Luo confirmed that Yi had indeed transformed back, and Zhang expressed her hopes of meeting her again. They bid each other farewell, and Zhang left the house. Luo couldn't help but wonder why Zhang's memories of Yi had not faded away, as he had believed that memories of the transformed objects would be wiped out once his superpower subsided. The lingering question puzzled him as he pondered over it. Luo was still deep in sleep when the sound of the doorbell roused him from his slumber. He groggily made his way to the door and opened it. Standing there was a girl who had come to borrow his television. She explained that she wanted to invite her classmates over to play video games, but her own television had suddenly stopped working. Much to her surprise, Luo informed her that he didn't have a television since he lived alone. The girl seemed shocked at the idea that some people didn't own televisions and apologized for troubling Luo before leaving. Luo couldn't help but find it normal for a guy who lived alone not to have a television. After all, he had his computer, which served his entertainment needs. He contemplated this as he heard the doorbell ring once again, causing him to grow irritated. He asked in frustration who it was this time. To his surprise, it was a delivery person who had come to bring him something. The delivery person asked Luo to sign for the package, but Luo found it odd since he hadn't made any recent purchases. Opening the box, Luo discovered a television inside, along with a letter from his mother. The letter explained that she was giving him the television because she had no use for it and nowhere to store it. Luo plugged in the television, but it only worked for a few seconds before shutting down. He wondered if his mother had given him a broken television out of laziness to repair it. It seemed to be an old model that was no longer in production, making maintenance a challenging task. Thinking quickly, Luo decided to use his superpower to transform the television into a girl. He wanted to make her feel more at ease, so he explained that they were in his new place where he lived alone, not his previous house. The girl coughed, hinting at the fact that a television model as old as she was should have been discarded a long time ago. Feeling a sense of sympathy, Luo gently held the girl's hands and assured her that he would find a way to repair her. She then requested that he take her outside, as she had never seen the world beyond the signals on the screen with her own eyes. Luo agreed, suggesting they stay within the city and not venture too far. The girl eagerly expressed her desire to go immediately, to which Luo exclaimed, "Today." Luo and she stood outside, surrounded by the breathtaking sights that lay before them. Each place they passed seemed familiar to her, and she couldn't help but express her awe, proclaiming that they were all truly beautiful. However, Luo quickly cautioned her, reminding her to keep her voice down and be mindful of her words. He knew the significance of their location, and it was important to tread carefully. Deciding to divert her attention, Luo led her to another place, emphasizing the need for her to behave appropriately. They stumbled upon an ice cream shop, and her face lit up with delight as she eagerly indulged in the frozen treat. Through the shop window, she noticed an array of clothes that caught her eye, captivating her with their style and allure. Unable to resist her curiosity, Luo guided her inside to get a closer look. As they explored the store, trying on various outfits, her excitement grew. She admired herself in the mirror. Eventually, Luo surprised her by purchasing one of the outfits she had tried on, making her heart swell with gratitude. Continuing their tour, they stumbled upon a lively cosplay event. Without hesitation, she joined in the fun, and posing for a photo alongside Luo. As they made their way back home, she couldn't contain her gratitude, turning to Luo and expressing her heartfelt thanks for fulfilling her deepest wish. With a serene smile, she reassured him that she now had no regrets left. And with those final words, she disappeared. Luo found himself alone, engulfed in a sea of loneliness after her sudden disappearance. He had never anticipated that it would happen so swiftly, leaving him with an aching void in his heart. The absence of the television princess also meant that her original clothes had vanished. Determined to ease his desolation, Luo decided to bring Yuzora along for a outing. Sensing the need for caution, he advised her to be more aware of her surroundings, adopting the role of a careful and discreet female protagonist. Perplexed, she failed to grasp Luo's intention behind his words. Patiently, Luo explained that her current attire, consisting of the same set of conspicuous clothes, attracted unwanted attention from others whenever they ventured outside. It dawned on her that the clothes she always wore were the ones Luo had purchased for her. Confused, she questioned Luo's dissatisfaction with her wardrobe, since he was the one who had chosen the clothes for her. Luo took Yuzora to a store with a vast selection of normal clothing. Inside, they were greeted by an array of beautiful garments, enticing them with their appeal. Luo encouraged her to take her time, perusing the options and trying on whatever caught her eye. Overwhelmed by the abundance of choices, she sought Luo's guidance in selecting the perfect outfit. Grateful for his help, Luo handed her a multitude of garments to try on. Emerging from the dressing room, she wore a particularly short outfit, unaware of Luo's oversight. He had forgotten to provide her with a pair of pants to wear underneath. Recognizing his mistake, Luo quickly instructed her not to step outside yet, promising to bring her a suitable pair of pants. Yuzora couldn't contain her joy at the multitude of clothes Luo had purchased for her. Overflowing with gratitude, she thanked him sincerely for his generosity. However, their moment was interrupted as it became apparent that it was time for her to disappear. Startled, the bag she was holding slipped from her grasp, and Luo instinctively wrapped his arms around her, seeking solace in the embrace. Deep within his heart, he held onto the conviction that they would meet again, just as he had with Mimi. Engrossed in his video game, Luo had completely forgotten about eating until his hunger pangs reminded him of his neglected appetite. Realizing that there were no noodles left at home, he acknowledged his oversight in restocking them. Feeling the emptiness in his stomach grow, Luo decided to venture outside to find something to eat. However, in his haste, he forgot to wrap the bandage around his right hand. Luo reassured himself that his superpower shouldn't activate at this moment, as he had already used it to transform Yuzora and bought her new clothes in the morning. It was only 11 p.m., and he had few of time to return home before midnight. Determined to complete his shopping quickly, he set off. As he walked along the street, his attention was caught by the astonishing progress made in the construction of the community building's second phase. In that moment, he made a mental note to discuss the possibility of his mother renting an apartment there. Luo found himself craving something other than noodles. He decided to order a rice bowl with potatoes and beef, hoping to satiate his hunger. Aware of the time, he realized that he was running late. Regretfully, he acknowledged that he should have returned home to bandage his injured hand before setting out. Worries started to flood his mind, imagining all the potential mishaps that could occur along the way. Determined to make it back before midnight, he hurriedly rushed home. As he hurried through the rain-soaked streets, he caught sight of a young couple engaged in flirtatious banter, momentarily distracting him from his own urgency. Just then, rain began to pour, making the pavement slippery and nearly causing him to lose his footing. Finally, he arrived at the door of his house and he was already late. Pausing for a moment, Luo contemplated the power he possessed. He had previously believed that his ability only extended to transforming individual objects or people. However, as he reached out and touched the wall of the building, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. A brilliant flash of light engulfed the entire structure, leaving Luo in awe and disbelief. The building had transformed entirely, morphing into a stunning babe. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of his power, Luo could hardly comprehend the implications. The limits of his abilities had been shattered, leaving him both amazed and perplexed at the extraordinary transformation that had unfolded before his eyes. The police arrived at the scene of the transformed building, determined to uncover the truth behind its sudden disappearance. Their inquiries led them to question witnesses who claimed to have seen a blinding light emanate from the building before it vanished. Unfortunately, the security camera that could have provided evidence was broken and under repair, rendering it useless in confirming what had transpired. The officer in charge approached Luo and the girl who had undergone the transformation. He requested their account of the events that took place. Unknown to him, the building they were searching for stood right in front of him, but the truth remained elusive. Thinking quickly, Luo concocted a story, stating that he was a resident of the apartment and had gone out for some shopping. He happened to pass by the neighborhood just as the building disappeared in a blinding flash of light, leaving him bewildered. He hoped this fabrication would suffice to cover up the reality of their involvement. Inquisitive about the girl's perspective, the policeman turned his attention to her. Acting swiftly, Luo interjected, claiming that she was his younger sister, shocked and traumatized by the sudden and inexplicable occurrence. As requested, they left their identification and contact information with the police, who promised to reach out to them if any further developments arose. Luo led the girl away, his mind filled with uncertainty about what to do next. Worries of being discovered and the strain on his abilities weighed heavily on him. He understood that his power could not be sustained for long this time. Just as Luo grappled with his predicament, the girl broke the silence, recalling a previous incident in which Luo had tried to stop a car thief. She indicated that she knew of his extraordinary power, the ability of his right hand to transform objects into living beings. Now, she found herself trapped in this state due to his power. Luo understood that it had been an accident, and he became determined to find a way to return her to her original form. Reflecting on his mistake of not concealing his hand before going out, he pledged never to repeat such an oversight in the future. The girl, however, seemed to revel in his misfortune, her personality revealing a twisted nature. Amidst the unfolding events, a peculiar individual arrived at the scene of the transformation, proclaiming that it was the work of extraterrestrial beings. According to this person, the building had been enveloped in a brilliant light, only to vanish within a matter of seconds. His words attracted a growing crowd, captivated by the possibility of an otherworldly explanation. Luo observed from the sidelines as more reporters gathered. Reluctant to ask for assistance, Luo found himself in a quandary until the girl reluctantly agreed to cooperate. He explained the urgency of her situation, emphasizing that she could not remain in her transformed state for long. Together, they devised a plan. Luo emerged from his hiding spot, diverting the attention of the onlookers. He pointed upward, exclaiming that he had spotted a white dot flying in the distance, urging the crowd to give chase. Meanwhile, the girl positioned herself where the building once stood, unnoticed amidst the commotion. Fortunately, most of the police officers and curious residents had dispersed, their attention now focused on Luo's purported sighting. Seizing the opportunity, the girl swiftly reverted to her original form, causing astonishment among those who witnessed the reappearance of the building. Relief washed over Luo as he realized she had succeeded in reversing the transformation just in time. Luo strolled along the harbor, his gaze fixed on the enormous ship that had just arrived. He couldn't help but wonder if Zhang Yun had already arrived and if this was indeed the designated meeting place. Earlier, Luo had received an exhilarating phone call, informing him that he had won a grand prize and was invited to a lavish party. The anticipation filled his mind as he clutched his phone in his right hand, its screen still cracked and wrapped in a bandage. Suddenly, a figure approached from behind and playfully covered Luo's eyes, challenging him to guess the identity. With a joyful exclamation, the girl released her hands, revealing herself to be Zhang Yun indeed. Together, they made their way towards the impressive ship, joining the queue of eager passengers waiting to board. "Wow!" Luo exclaimed, taking in the opulence of the cruise. The grandeur overwhelmed him, and he found himself carrying Zhang Yun's luggage, which proved to be incredibly heavy. Struggling under its weight, he asked her to slow down, but she chided him gently, reminding him that it was unbecoming for a gentleman to complain about such matters. As they entered the ship, they discovered a crowd of people gathered around the entrance, unable to proceed any further. It seemed that the ship was undergoing maintenance, and boarding would only be possible the following day. The person in charge, sensing the frustration among the passengers, apologized profusely and assured them that the maintenance work would be completed promptly. Accommodations would be arranged, and everyone was encouraged to rest and explore the cruise's shopping center. Luo and Zhang Yun ventured out to explore the bustling area. They marveled at the myriad of shops and items on display, with Zhang Yun expressing her desire to possess them all. Women on a shopping spree can be quite overwhelming, Luo whispered to himself, amused by her enthusiasm. Later that night, as Zhang Yun lay on the comfortable bed in their room, she expressed her discontent, remarking that she wouldn't have come if she had known about the unexpected delay. Yet, she couldn't deny the luxurious comfort of the bed. Realizing that there was only one bed in the room, Luo hesitated to share it with her, as he was already involved with someone else. Sensing his reservations, she inquired about the girl Luo had mentioned, the one he had transformed into his phone. Curiosity piqued, Zhang Yun requested to see the girl for herself. She wanted Luo to transform his phone so that she could meet her. Complying with her request, Luo transformed the phone, and before them stood Yuzora. Zhang Yun introduced herself to Yuzora as Luo's friend, cementing their connection in this extraordinary circumstance. Zhang's unexpected invitation for Yuzora to sleep in the bed with her left her feeling uncertain. She worriedly asked Luo about his sleeping arrangements, concerned about where he would rest for the night. Luo couldn't help but imagine himself sandwiched between two girls, his mind conjuring playful scenarios. He assured them that he would sleep on the sofa, but Yuzora reminded him that they were not at his big brother's house. Confused, she asked him where they were exactly. Luo revealed that they were on a cruise ship, which unfortunately had been delayed until the next day. As a result, they were only given the cabin for the night. Being above the vast expanse of the sea, Luo asked Yuzora if she wanted to see it. Zhang, showing interest as well, joined in, eager to explore the cruise ship they hadn't fully enjoyed during the day. However, Luo cautioned them that it was already dark outside, making it difficult to see anything clearly, and suggested they should get some rest. Zhang, determined to make the most of their time on the ship, questioned why they couldn't take a stroll, emphasizing that they hadn't finished exploring the vessel. She also wanted to show Yuzora around. Eventually, Luo gave in to their enthusiasm, and they all ventured out together to witness the sea's mystique. It was Yuzora's first time seeing such a vast body of water, and she couldn't help but be mesmerized by the sight. The gentle sea breeze caressed her, filling her with a sense of tranquility. Overwhelmed by the beauty before her, Yuzora expressed her desire for big brother Luo to take her to the sea again in the future. Unable to contain her excitement, she darted toward the other side but accidentally collided with two boys who were making their way in the opposite direction. Realizing her mistake, Yuzora quickly apologized to them. The two boys, reeking of alcohol, were taken aback by the unexpected encounter with a young girl like Yuzora on the cruise ship. One of them even took hold of her hand, remarking on her cuteness. They insisted she join them for a drink, ignoring Zhang's intervention and Luo's attempt to defuse the situation. Seeing an opportunity to pair up with the two girls, the boys brushed off Luo's interference, pushing him aside. Luo found himself on the floor, uncertain if he could overpower the intoxicated duo. Desperate to buy Zhang and Yuzora some time to escape, he scanned the surroundings for something he could use to divert their attention. Just as he spotted a nearby stick, a sudden flash of blinding light burst forth, engulfing the area. A sudden flash of light illuminated the surroundings, and within its brilliance, a lady appeared before Luo. Astonishingly, the object he had been holding had transformed into a girl, leaving everyone in awe. Both boys and the ladies turned their heads, their attention captured by the unexpected arrival. It was at that moment Luo realized that Yuzora was still present, and he pondered how he had unwittingly summoned yet another girl. Zhang, too stunned for words, could only gaze in astonishment. The two boys cautiously approached the lady who had materialized out of thin air, admiring her for her undeniable cuteness. She was dressed in an unusual outfit, leading Luo to wonder if she could be a legendary anime cosplayer. As they neared her, she warned them not to touch her. Turning her attention to Luo, she addressed him as Captain, surprising him with her recognition. She went on to inform Luo that her subordinates had witnessed everything that had transpired, emphasizing that the two boys had shown disrespect and behaved inappropriately toward the girls, even in broad daylight. Requesting permission from Luo, she expressed her desire to take action. The two boys, unable to contain their amusement, burst into laughter, mocking her presence. Luo rose to his feet, his voice filled with authority, and he granted her the permission she sought. "Consider it done," she acknowledged, her voice resolute. Swiftly, she delivered a swift and powerful kick to each of the boys, sending them crashing to the ground. Witnessing her strength, Luo remarked on her formidable power. But before she could proceed further, aiming to finish them off, Luo intervened, urging her to stop. He reminded her that they had already been defeated and were unconscious, emphasizing that taking their lives would be unlawful and unacceptable in their society. Satisfied with Luo's reasoning, she reported to him that the mission had been successfully completed. Grateful for her intervention, Luo and the girls expressed their thanks, their voices filled with genuine appreciation. Just then, the commotion attracted the attention of the crew, prompting Luo and the girls to swiftly devise an escape plan. They quickly made their way back to the safety of their cabin. The two girls, exhausted from the day's events, had already fallen fast asleep. Luo, deep in thought, reclined on the sofa, pondering the peculiarities of his superpower. He wondered why it had triggered twice in a single day when it was meant to activate only once, specifically past midnight. As he contemplated this mysterious phenomenon, Luo found himself sitting next to the sailor babe who had come to their aid. Feeling Luo's gaze upon her, she asked him to stop staring. Sensing his confusion, she inquired if he had any instructions for her. Luo scratched his head, pondering her question, but eventually replied, "No." Early in the morning, Luo awoke to find himself still sitting upright, having unintentionally fallen asleep. The sailor girl had reverted back to her original form, indicating that Yuzora must have also returned to normal. Luo scanned the room and spotted his phone, confirming that Yuzora had indeed changed back. Zhang was still sound asleep, so Luo decided to freshen up. As Luo washed up, he noticed that the cruise ship was already in motion. The automated system greeted the passengers and thanked them for choosing the cruise. It announced that their destination was Japan. Surprised by this revelation, Luo turned to Zhang, who informed him that they would only have a brief stay in Japan, with the majority of their time being spent on the cruise itself. This realization prompted Luo to start thinking about how he could acquire more comics and figurines during their journey, lost in his own thoughts. Returning to their room, Zhang requested that Luo transform Yuzora back to her original form since she was his girlfriend. Zhang quickly approached Yuzora and invited her to enjoy the various services available on the cruise. They set off together to explore and indulge in different activities and culinary delights. As Luo wandered around, he found himself near the table where the two troublesome guys from earlier had been sitting. It then dawned on him that they were not in their rooms when the crew had knocked on their doors that morning. The two guys approached Luo, offering their apologies and begging him not to be angry with them. However, Luo sternly warned them against drinking excessively or causing trouble in the future. The two guys, still slightly groggy from their earlier alcohol-induced haze, struggled to remember what had transpired. Luo kindly suggested that they refrain from consuming excessive amounts of alcohol in the future, as it had clearly led to their memory lapse and unruly behavior. As the ship arrived in Okinawa, the computerized system welcomed everyone to their destination. She informed him that they would be staying in Okinawa for 2 days and 1 night, with tonight's accommodation being a hot spring hotel showcasing local characteristics. Luo couldn't believe his luck. He had finally arrived at his dream location and would be spending the night in a hot spring hotel. They disembarked from the ship and made their way towards the Okinawa hotel. Zhang asked Luo to take a photo of her, and in return, Luo captured a video of the various peculiar fishes he encountered in a nearby river. Eventually, they arrived at the hotel, and Luo was awestruck by everything he saw inside. He couldn't resist the urge to touch and explore the unique decor and furnishings. However, His excitement was interrupted when he realized that he would be sharing the same room with Zhang, implying that they would be sleeping together. Feeling uncomfortable with the idea, Luo expressed his disbelief, stating that it was impossible for them to share a bed. Nevertheless, they were soon presented with a delicious meal, and Luo expressed his gratitude to Zhang for fulfilling his lifelong dream. After finishing their meal, they decided to experience the renowned hot spring that the hotel had to offer. Zhang asked Luo to transform Yuzora back to her original form as she intended to bring her along to the female bath. Upon hearing this, Luo accidentally spit out the food he had in his mouth. Zhang reassured him that she would take care of Yuzora and that there was no need for him to worry. Zhang and Yuzora changed into their bathing attire, while Luo parted ways with them. When they arrived at the hot spring, they found it completely empty, as if they had booked the entire place for themselves. The moment they stepped into the hot spring, they felt a profound sense of comfort. Yuzora mentioned that she felt hot, and Zhang explained that it was normal to feel that way initially, but after soaking for some time, she would start to feel incredibly relaxed. However, Zhang warned her not to soak in the hot spring for too long, as she might end up passing out. Luo and Zhang found themselves on an airplane, with Zhang providing instructions to Luo on how to adjust his seat. As it was his first time flying, Luo was unsure of what to do. Zhang directed him to press the button on the armrest to adjust the seat, and informed him about the trash bag in the seat pocket for rubbish disposal. She pointed out the reading light switch, call button, and explained that he could adjust the air conditioning as well. Luo was fascinated by all these features. Being afraid of heights, Luo held onto Zhang tightly for support. They had been traveling for several days now, and Luo couldn't help but worry about Mimi. He felt that it would take too long to return home via the cruise. Gripping Zhang even tighter, she exclaimed, asking Luo to stop holding her so tightly. Zhang suggested that if he was really scared, he should try to sleep during the flight. She promised to wake him up when they landed. Suddenly, Zhang woke Luo up, informing him that there was a problem with the airplane. Panic spread among the passengers, but the flight attendants reassured everyone and instructed them to retrieve the life jackets from under their seats. Both Luo and Zhang were uncertain about what to do next. Zhang expressed her fear of dying, and Luo reassured her that he would find a way to save her. In an instant, Luo removed the bandage from his right hand and touched the airplane. Miraculously, the airplane transformed into a babe, causing everyone on board to lose their balance, including Luo. As he fell, he screamed in terror. Suddenly, he woke up from his nightmare. Zhang asked if he was okay. Luo apologized to everyone for shouting and causing a disturbance. They landed safely, and Luo expressed his gratitude to Zhang for inviting him and Yuzora on this trip, stating that he had a wonderful time. Zhang promised to invite them out again in the future. Luo inquired about Zhang's transportation home and offered to share a cab with her. However, she informed him that her father would be coming to pick her up. Just then, her father arrived, and she bid farewell to Luo. Now back at home, Luo called out for Mimi, his little cat, wondering if she had missed him. As he surveyed the messy house, he called out for Mimi once again. Luo was sound asleep when his phone suddenly rang, disrupting his slumber. Reluctant to get up, he groggily reached for his phone to see who was calling. It was Zhang Yun on the other end. Despite the early hour, she insisted that it was no longer too early, as it was already 9 a.m. During their recent trip to Japan, Zhang had bought a gift for Luo and sent it via courier. She called him to inform him about it. Grateful for the thoughtful gesture, Luo expressed his thanks to Zhang. Their conversation was brief as she had other matters to attend to. After they ended the call, Luo heard the doorbell ring. It was a representative from Headwind Express, delivering the gift. Excitement coursed through him as he eagerly unwrapped it. Inside, he found a summer limited edition figure of Mizuki Tsukihime from the series, My Maid is So Cute, a figurine he had long desired to have. To his delight, the gift also included interchangeable maid swimsuits, exclusive to the limited edition figure. Overwhelmed with joy, Luo couldn't contain his happiness as he profusely thanked Zhang Yun. He regarded her as an angel sent from heaven, a guiding light in his life, and wished her all the best in her future endeavors. Taking the figure out of the box, he began examining its intricate details. However, as he was inspecting it, something extraordinary happened. The figurine transformed into a living, breathing human before his eyes. Shocked and bewildered, Luo couldn't help but shout in astonishment. It became apparent that the bandage had been cut while he was unpacking the box, triggering his superpower and bringing the figurine to life. In an attempt to regain his composure, Luo realized that the newly transformed figure referred to him as Master. The unexpected address overwhelmed him with emotion, as he had never imagined being called Master by a maid in his lifetime. Determined to preserve the connection to the figure's original form, he decided to continue calling her Suki-Heim. Suki-Heim, now in human form, asked Luo if there was anything he wanted her to do, such as laundry or cleaning. Noticing the messy state of the room since Luo hadn't tidied up before leaving on the cruise with Zhang Yun, she expressed her commitment to ensuring a comfortable living environment for her master. With determination, she vowed to fulfill all the duties of a competent maid, dedicated to making her master's life as comfortable as possible. The entire room sparkled with cleanliness, and Luo couldn't help but express his gratitude to Suki-Heim for her impeccable work. "Thank you, Suki-Heim, for making everything so sparkling clean," he said. In response, Suki-Heim replied, "You're welcome, Master. As long as you are satisfied, this is what I should do." Not only was she cute, but her housekeeping skills were also flawless. Luo made up his mind to summon Suki-Heim to help him with the housework every month. He secretly planned to save the money his mother gave him for hiring a cleaner and instead use it to purchase more figurines. The thought of having a collection of maid figurines serving him excited him, imagining a trio of ladies attending to his needs. Suki-Heim was pleased to see that her master was pleased with her work. Just then, Luo's hunger caught up with him. Suki-Heim reassured him, saying that she would prepare food for him. Surprised, Luo asked if she was skilled in cooking as well, to which she replied affirmatively. Luo hadn't expected Suki-Heim to be a capable cook. He eagerly anticipated the delicious meal that awaited him. He wondered what kind of food she would make. Shortly after, she returned and asked him to wait a little longer as the food was still being prepared. Curiosity got the better of her, and she asked Luo why the refrigerator only contained beverages and no food. After searching the cabinets, she found only snacks and a few packs of instant noodles. Luo sheepishly admitted that he usually didn't cook much, flashing a smile. Suki-Heim decided to go out and buy some ingredients to cook a proper meal. However, before she could leave, Luo stopped her, suggesting that she make instant noodles with added eggs instead. Concerned about her safety, he told her that it was too dangerous for her to go out dressed as a maid. He assured her that he would buy the ingredients next time. Relenting, Suki-Heim agreed, acknowledging that it was her master's decision. Luo waited eagerly for the noodles to be ready. Suddenly, he rushed to the kitchen upon hearing a noise, only to find Suki-Heim on the floor, clutching her burnt finger in pain. Worried, Luo instructed her to flush her finger with water to alleviate the pain. Luo finished his meal, thoroughly enjoying the delicious food prepared by Suki-Heim. He expressed his gratitude for her exceptional hospitality, to which she humbly replied, "Master, your satisfaction is the greatest affirmation for me." Suki-Heim's unwavering devotion to her master shone through as she declared her willingness to go to any lengths for him. Feeling a bit drowsy after eating, Luo experienced the common phenomenon of decreased blood supply to the brain, making him feel sleepy. Sensing his need for rest, Suki-Heim immediately began arranging everything for him to take a nap. He found himself comfortably resting his head on her lap, although he couldn't help but question why he was using her lap as a pillow. Eventually, Luo decided to sit up, realizing that it won't be appropriate to continue resting on Sukiheim's lap for an afternoon nap. However, Sukiheim insisted that he lay back down, promising to read him a bedtime story. Intrigued, Luo obliged, and Sukiheim began recounting the story of how Luo acquired his superpower. As the story unfolded, the soothing rhythm of her voice gradually lulled both Luo and Mimi into a peaceful slumber. Suddenly, an unexpected disturbance jolted Luo from his sleep. He realized that he hadn't wrapped his right hand with the bandage, which meant that another transformation had occurred. His eyes widened as he took in the presence of a new individual who had appeared while he was fast asleep. The woman raised her finger, summoning water, and then snapped her fingers, causing the water to drop onto Luo and Mimi. In surprise, Luo exclaimed, demanding to know who she was and if he had inadvertently transformed something once again. The woman reassured Luo not to look around, stating that she was not something he had transformed. Her introduction left Luo astounded as she revealed herself to be Goddess Alice. Luo repeated her name once again, trying to grasp the memory of their previous encounter. The woman confirmed that they had met a few months ago. Luo struggled to recall the details until a sudden realization struck him. He remembered the incident of acquiring his powers and asked if she was the one who appeared in his dream, asking him numerous questions and granting him his superpower. Sitting in the air, the woman snapped her fingers once more, conjuring a cup of tea. Luo couldn't help but think to himself that this goddess figure was quite impressive. He mustered the courage to inquire why she had chosen him specifically out of everyone on Earth and why she had bestowed upon him the power. In response to Luo's questions, the woman's demeanor abruptly changed. She slammed the cup of tea on his head, scolding him for his rudeness in speaking to a goddess in such a manner. Luo muttered to himself, astonished by her audacity. Fortunately, the tea wasn't hot, sparing him from any discomfort. Wondering why she had reacted so strongly, Luo asked why she was throwing tea at him. She replied that it was because of his disrespectful behavior. She then explained that she had given Luo his superpower simply because it made her happy. As she set the cup of tea down, dark clouds rolled in, accompanied by rumbling thunder. The surroundings became ominous, but soon returned to normal, the darkness dissipating. Alice warned Luo that in the near future, the city he lived in would face a similar fate if the actions of his generation led to the destruction of the world, which would also mean the destruction of her work. Luo pondered the possibility that Alice was the creator of their world. She confirmed that her clan was indeed responsible for its creation, leaving Luo in awe. While he still struggled to fully comprehend his power and its purpose, Alice expressed her need for him to use that power to change the world. In the near future, the world was destined for extinction due to human greed. To prevent this dire fate, Goddess Alice had chosen 3 warriors, including Luo, to fulfill a crucial task in the city. As Alice explained the gravity of the situation, Luo couldn't help but feel that his superpower, which he initially believed would only bring personal benefits, had thrust him into a storyline reminiscent of a typical teenage male comic. Thoughts raced through his mind as he contemplated the possibility of having to fight with blood and tears for world peace. Eager to meet the other 2 warriors chosen by Goddess Alice, Luo suggested that they gather to get to know each other. Curious, Alice questioned Luo's anxiety to meet them, her hands outstretched, channeling his superpower. However, Alice informed him that their meeting would have to wait as she had other matters to attend to. In an instant, she disappeared, leaving Luo with a sense of abandonment. Later, as Luo went to sleep, Alice's words lingered in his mind. She had instructed him to use his power to change the world, but he still couldn't comprehend the exact purpose behind it. He wondered if the others with superpowers felt the same way and pondered his next course of action. Eventually, exhaustion overcame him, and he drifted into slumber. Within his dreams, Luo found himself in the company of the other 2 chosen warriors and Goddess Alice. They stood together, awaiting Alice's explanation. However, before she could delve into the details, Alice decided to show them something significant, a revelation that would shed light on their shared destiny. She revealed to them a glimpse of Earth's future. Luo was filled with shock, witnessing the devastation that awaited their race and the decline of the world. They were the chosen warriors, handpicked by her, as she informed them. She began explaining that their mission was to save the Earth. Curious, Luo asked her how they would accomplish such a task. Her response urged him to utilize his brain, reminding him that it wasn't merely for decoration. She informed them that if they couldn't succeed within a year, they should teach the people of their generation to restrain their own behavior, as she would erase their race entirely from the universe. Suddenly, Luo woke up from his slumber, shouting. He went back to sleep once again. Early in the morning, Mimi awakened him. He checked his phone and discovered a message from his mother, urging him to come home for lunch, as it had been a long time since his last visit. It was then that he realized the bandage on his hand had come undone. Holding his phone, he wondered why it hadn't transformed. Calling out Yuzora's name, she immediately transformed. Could it be that he could now control his power freely? However, he couldn't be certain if it was merely an accident. He decided to test it once more, requesting Yuzora's cooperation. In an instant, a flash of blue flame appeared in his hand. He uttered the words, "Superpower retrieved," and Yuzora transformed back into a phone. Now, it no longer mattered if he had a bandage or not. Glancing at the time on his phone, he realized it was already past 10. He hurriedly got ready to leave so that he could have lunch at home. Luo stepped out of his apartment and entered an elevator, only to encounter a drunken man inside. He couldn't understand why someone would be intoxicated during the day, finding the atmosphere suffocating. The man, hungry and holding another bottle of alcohol, kicked the elevator impatiently, questioning why it was moving too slowly even though it was descending. Concerned about the man hitting his leg against the wall, Luo attempted to calm him down. When the elevator doors finally opened, Luo quickly exited, but the drunk man continued his wall-hitting frenzy. Deciding to take a different elevator on his way back, Luo couldn't shake off the eerie encounter as he witnessed the drunk man screaming, "Ghost," when the elevator transformed into a girl with only one eye open. Fear overwhelmed Luo, causing him to stumble and fall to the ground upon seeing the girl. Regretting his decision, he quickly retreated and moved away. As Luo walked along the road, the car he had called earlier arrived, driven by a girl. She invited him to hop in, and they zoomed off. After a short ride, Luo got out of the car and thanked the driver. Just as he was about to continue on his way, he heard someone calling his name. Turning around, he recognized Zhang Yun, accompanied by her friend. Confused by Zhang Yun's statement, Luo couldn't comprehend why she claimed he was so corrupt. Luo couldn't comprehend Zhang's behavior towards him and her assumption based on the car he had arrived in. He tried to explain that it was just a small misunderstanding, but before he could clarify, the girl inside the car spoke up, stating that they were not in a relationship as Zhang had assumed. She explained that her boyfriend had simply gotten a ride in her car, and their relationship was purely transactional. Zhang quickly grasped the situation and bid them farewell, speeding off in her car. Luo felt the need to clarify once more, insisting that he was not the girl's boyfriend. Zhang's friend, named Taozi, whom Luo had just been introduced to as Zhang's high school classmate, continued talking with him. As they engaged in conversation, they suddenly heard someone shouting about a robbery nearby. A woman's panicked voice pierced the air, drawing their attention. In a shocking turn of events, a car came rushing in, colliding with the person involved in the robbery. The individual lay lifeless on the ground, and Luo, along with the girls he was with, watched the unfolding scene in astonishment. Then, a figure emerged, with blue flames emanating from their hand. They seemed to be controlling the car. Filled with curiosity and a flicker of hope, Luo dashed towards the figure, his mind racing with the possibility that this person could be one of the 3 warriors he had heard about. Luo chased after the mysterious figure, calling out for them to stop and wait. However, the figure swiftly turned a corner, disappearing from Luo's sight. He couldn't determine which direction the person had gone, realizing that there were others with superpowers in this world, as Lord Alice had mentioned. Considering it a mere accident, Luo decided it was best to head back for now since he had lost track of the figure. Upon his return, Luo inquired whether someone had called the police. Zhang asked him where he had gone, expressing her fear and how terrifying the situation had been for her. Just as Luo spotted the figure once again, the person vanished before he could reach their location. Luo wondered if the figure had returned to observe something specific. Intrigued by the person's superpowers, he pondered the nature of their ability to manipulate cars. Soon, the police arrived at the scene and began interviewing Zhang and her friend. Zhang explained that two men had suddenly appeared, snatched her bag, and then a car had swiftly come out of nowhere, sending the robbers flying. The unexpected retaliation by a car left everyone astonished. The police also wanted to hear Luo's account of the incident, asking if he had anything else to add. Luo replied that he had been with Zhang and her friend throughout the event. The officer thanked them for their cooperation. Luo returned home to find his mother wearing a face mask. He was taken aback and felt a sense of fear. He had never seen someone wearing a mask during the day. His mother asked him what he was mumbling about, and he quickly dismissed it as nothing. Feeling famished, Luo requested that they eat, but his mother playfully pinched his cheek, calling him a glutton and stating that she wouldn't serve him until she removed her mask. Luo walked back home, feeling exhausted after his mother had insisted he help with the housework. As he made his way, he patiently waited for the traffic light to turn green before crossing the road. However, a truck approached, completely disregarding the red light. The truck was moving at a high speed, and Luo feared for his life. In a moment of desperation, he turned and saw a forklift for rent vehicle nearby. Acting on instinct, he touched the vehicle and transformed it into a girl. Luo urgently pleaded with the transformed girl to assist him, as his life was in imminent danger. The girl, displaying immense strength and confidence, managed to stop the truck by pushing it away. She noticed a peculiar aura surrounding the truck, as if it had been under some form of control. However, the aura had completely dissipated. Recalling the earlier incident involving the car being controlled, Luo wondered if someone was intentionally causing disturbances. Sensing someone approaching, he swiftly pulled the transformed girl away, advising her to revert to her original form, as the presence of the police was imminent, and it wouldn't be suitable for her to remain in that state. She changed back, and Luo silently walked away. Unbeknownst to him, a lady observed his actions from behind. Luo arrived home, still buzzing with excitement from the thrilling events of the day. As he entered his house, he noticed that the lights were still on, making him wonder if he had forgotten to switch them off before leaving. Everything seemed to be in order, but then he heard a sound coming from the bathroom. Curiosity piqued, he went to investigate. Upon opening the bathroom door, Luo was surprised to find a lady inside. It was Lord Alice. She explained that she had borrowed his bathroom for a moment. Intrigued by her presence in his house, Luo asked if there was something she needed him to do. Lord Alice replied that she indeed had many tasks for him. Open to anything, Luo expressed his willingness to assist. Firstly, Lord Alice mentioned that his shower gel had run out and advised him to remember to restock it. Observing that she was folding her arms and appeared cold, Luo suggested that she put on additional clothing. In response, Lord Alice swiftly changed her attire and inquired if that would suffice. With his curiosity still burning, Luo couldn't help but ask Lord Alice about the earlier incident and their motives behind it. However, she cryptically responded that she couldn't divulge such information. She likened it to a teacher not revealing the answers during a test, implying that the challenges they faced would require Luo's own exploration and discovery. Luo questioned whether allies with superpowers could potentially attack one another, seeking clarification from Lord Alice. She responded with a simple no, reinforcing the notion of their alliance. Lord Alice fell silent for a moment, her voice barely audible as she responded with a resounding, "No." She emphasized that the events that unfolded held no purpose for her. The fate of their existence and the planet was intertwined, and if they failed to save the world, they would all perish together. Luo, still hopeful, questioned why Lord Alice, being a goddess, couldn't change the course of events. However, she remained resolute in her decision not to interfere in human affairs. Lord Alice explained that humans often naively believed that a hero or deity would emerge to rescue them from impending doom, but it was the humans themselves who had made the mistakes without repenting or changing their ways. She spoke directly to Luo, pointing out his own desire for someone else to solve the problems at hand, labeling it as naive and laughable. Luo recalled Lord Alice's earlier statement that only humans could stop the destruction of the Earth. In an attempt to provide him with a clue, she mentioned the prevalence of sickness among humans. Perplexed, Luo didn't grasp the full meaning behind her words. Lord Alice delved deeper into the incident involving the two men who had died, revealing their involvement in the robbery. She touched Luo's forehead, granting him a vision of the events that had transpired. Stunned by what he witnessed, Luo realized the extent of the sickness that plagued the world. Lord Alice asserted that the world was sick because humans were sick, and this illness would continue to spread, much like a virus. She commanded Luo to eliminate these viruses that caused the Earth's sickness. However, Luo refused, stating that he couldn't take on the role of a judge and executioner. He believed that those who committed wrongdoings should face the judgment of the law. Lord Alice then proposed the idea of granting him the authority to carry out such actions. But Luo stood firm, expressing that he was unwilling to accept the superpower if it meant he had to kill others. He called out to her, urging Lord Alice to consider reclaiming his superpower. She admitted that she had underestimated Luo and revealed that she had been testing him. She commended him for passing the test and informed him that she had decided to raise his ranking in the selection of superpower users. This news brought joy to Luo, but Lord Alice added that he would need to complete more missions to maintain his elevated ranking. Seeing Luo's displeasure, she teased him by suggesting that she could lower his ranking instead. However, Luo expressed his gratitude and refused her offer, thanking her for her kindness. Curious about his powers, Luo asked Lord Alice if there were other abilities besides transforming objects into babes and if there were alternative methods to utilize his powers. Lord Alice admitted that she wasn't entirely sure herself since she wasn't omnipotent. She had only granted him a small portion of her soul authority, which functioned like game permissions, allowing him to gain superpowers. The specific abilities he awakened and how to use them were not within her realm of concern. Lord Alice then noticed a girl standing at Luo's door and inquired if she was his girlfriend. Confused, Luo looked back but didn't see anyone. Just then, he heard a knock on his door, and it was Zhang Yun. Wondering why she had suddenly come to his house, Luo felt unsure of what to do with Lord Alice still present. He told Zhang to give him a moment, claiming that he was putting on his pants. Turning to Lord Alice, he asked if it would be inconvenient for someone to see her, given that his friend had come to visit. Lord Alice assured him that it was not a problem and urged him to go and open the door. Luo opened the door and apologized for keeping Zhang waiting. She entered his house, and Luo asked if there was a specific reason she had come looking for him. Zhang noticed Lord Alice sitting there, prompting further intrigue. Silence filled the room as they stood there for a while. Zhang broke the silence, referring to something that was said earlier. She accused him of being shameless for bringing a girl home and undressing in front of her. Zhang taunted him, questioning if he was living up to Yazora's expectations with such behavior and calling him incorrigible. Luo denied any wrongdoing, but Zhang remained skeptical, not believing his explanation. Trying to divert the situation, Luo introduced Lord Alice as a distant relative who was visiting for a few days. He lied, claiming that Lord Alice was his cousin, trying to protect her identity. Lord Alice remained silent throughout this exchange, unsure of how to react. Zhang, attempting to be polite, introduced herself as Luo's classmate and inquired about Lord Alice's name. Quick on her feet, Luo intervened, hurriedly responding with the name, Xiao. Lord Alice played along, making it less awkward for everyone. Luo explained that his cousin enjoyed imitating people from ancient times, which was the reason for her unusual way of speaking. Deep inside, he felt grateful for Lord Alice's cooperation and kindness. Suddenly, a little kitten came bounding towards Zhang. In an attempt to catch it, Lord Alice grabbed its tail, causing the cat to scratch her hand with its claws. Both Luo and Zhang reacted with concern, worried about the injury. Lord Alice frowned, clearly upset about the scratch. Luo quickly defended her, explaining that the cat scratched her out of fear when she grabbed its tail unexpectedly. Zhang asked Luo if he had any alcohol disinfectant and a band-aid to treat the wound urgently. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Luo decided to go downstairs and buy the items. In the meantime, Zhang and Lord Alice engaged in conversation about Luo, during which it became evident that Zhang had feelings for him. Lord Alice gently touched Zhang's face and noticed that it had turned red. Concerned, she asked if Zhang was feeling unwell. Just as Luo returned, he noticed the two of them seemingly engaged in a cheerful conversation. Curious, Luo inquired about the topic of their discussion. In that moment, Lord Alice was about to reveal Zhang's secret affection for Luo, but Zhang quickly covered her mouth to prevent her from speaking. Luo handed the band-aid he had bought to Lord Alice, who used it to treat the scratch on her hand. Zhang advised her to keep the wound dry and assured her that it would heal in a few days. Luo then asked Zhang about the reason for her visit. Zhang explained that she had come to Luo's house due to the aftermath of an accident where 2 people had died. Earlier that morning, she had received a call from the police officer who had questioned them during that incident. The officer had asked her some strange questions, leading her to visit Luo's house. During the call, the officer inquired about Luo's actions at the time of the incident. Zhang had deliberately withheld the information about Luo running away, stating that he had merely been a spectator. She found the officer's line of questioning peculiar, as he seemed to imply that Luo had some connection to the matter. In reality, Luo did have some involvement, although he had not anticipated anyone suspecting him. The situation struck him as highly unusual. Zhang warned Luo to be extremely cautious. After bidding them farewell, she left the house. Lord Alice urged Luo to be wary of the police officer, as it was possible that others had already begun to suspect something. She hinted that there might be ants, informants, who had gathered information. With a sense of impending danger, Luo resolved to be on guard and take precautions. Luo sat at home, accompanied by Lord Alice. She began to explain something important to him, emphasizing that there were many intelligent ants in the world. Some of these ants possessed heightened sensitivity and were capable of connecting various situations based on past events. Lord Alice specifically referred to the policeman they had encountered earlier. This revelation surprised Luo, as he had only met the officer once. Lord Alice corrected him, explaining that they had actually interacted multiple times, which had drawn the officer's attention to him. However, Luo couldn't recall any of these encounters. Lord Alice warned him to be cautious when meeting strangers and advised him not to remain oblivious when unexpected situations arose. Just then, she dropped another bombshell. Lord Alice declared that she would be staying in his house for the time being. This news left Luo in shock, as he hadn't anticipated such a decision from her. Lord Alice explained that she had important divine duties to attend to and would need to use her divine sense as a goddess, which required her to remain close to Luo. Leaving Luo momentarily, Lord Alice descended to the lower level of the house. From there, she called out to Luo, referring to him as a mortal, and instructed him to go about his normal mortal activities. Feeling a pang of hunger, Luo decided to cook something for himself. As Lord Alice woke up from her rest, she announced that she had already prepared a superpower special training session for Luo. With renewed enthusiasm, she encouraged him to embark on this training, hinting at the development of extraordinary abilities that awaited him. Luo repeated the phrase in disbelief, special superpower training. Lord Alice confirmed that she had indeed arranged a series of special lessons to unlock his superpowers. However, she refused to disclose the details just yet, teasing him to wait until they began. Luo and Lord Alice sat together, sharing a meal. Aware that Lord Alice would be staying in his house for some time, Luo suggested they inform others that she was his distant relative to prevent unnecessary questions or speculation. Lord Alice agreed to his suggestion, understanding his concerns. Lost in his thoughts about his late sister, Luo seemed distant. Lord Alice noticed his change in demeanor and asked if something was wrong. Luo reassured her, stating that he was simply reminiscing about the time he had spent with his sister. He shared that when he was very young, he had a sister who passed away shortly after birth. The details surrounding her death were unclear, and even his parents didn't have a clear memory of what had happened. This fact puzzled Luo, as it seemed strange that his parents could not recall the reason for his sister's passing, considering he was too young to remember. Lord Alice raised her hand, conjuring a flash of the earth encircled by a glowing ring. She explained that she had the ability to access the world records, containing comprehensive details about everything that had happened. Luo was amazed by her power. Lord Alice asked Luo if he remembered anything about what her mother had experienced during her pregnancy. However, Luo was too young at the time and couldn't recall any details. Lord Alice informed him that she couldn't find any records pertaining to her mother, indicating that something must have influenced or altered the information. She promised Luo that she would investigate the matter further, but warned him that the debt he would owe her would only grow larger as a result. Luo called out to Xiao Shi, the name he had given Lord Alice, announcing that the superpower training would take place at their current location. He couldn't believe his eyes when he realized they were standing at a tourist spot, seemingly high above the ground. He asked Lord Alice what he was supposed to train on, feeling a wave of fear as he looked down. Luo silently pleaded with Lord Alice not to suggest walking on a tightrope or anything similarly dangerous. As his legs grew weak, he glanced to his side and noticed a commotion. A group of people was quarreling, and one girl accused another guy of touching her buttocks. The girl's boyfriend, enraged by the insult directed at him, attempted to throw a punch. However, the other guy swiftly blocked his punch and retaliated with a strong blow, causing the girl to cry out in distress. Luo intervened in the escalating confrontation, announcing that he had already called the police, who would arrive soon. The guy involved in the dispute questioned Luo's sudden appearance, and in his anger, he punched Luo, causing him to nearly lose his balance. As Luo stumbled, his phone slipped from his pocket and soared through the air, landing on the ground below the tourist spot. In a moment of panic, Luo called out Yuzora's name as he watched his phone descend. Filled with anger, Luo grabbed onto the guy's clothes, yelling at him for causing his phone to fall. The guy, misunderstanding the situation, dismissed the incident as merely a useless phone that could be replaced with money. Luo, however, insisted that it wasn't about the monetary value of the phone. There was something more significant at stake. As Yuzora fell in front of Luo's eyes, he desperately reminded the guy that the phone wasn't just an object. It was Yuzora, his precious companion. The guy, making light of the situation, joked that Luo seemed to have developed feelings for his phone. Fueled by anger, Luo's eyes turned red, and he tightened his grip on the guy. Alice stood by, observing the escalating confrontation. In a fit of rage, Luo declared that the guy had killed Yuzora. Mockingly, the guy questioned how Luo could let a mere phone dictate the hardships he would face in life. In response, Luo vowed that someone like him should disappear from the world and experience the pain of losing Yuzora. Suddenly, Luo's anger boiled over, and he grabbed the guy by the neck, hurling him away. The guy fell and died, leaving the surrounding witnesses shocked and screaming about murder. Alice snapped her fingers, causing the people around them to freeze in place. She delivered a heavy slap to Luo's face, reminding him of what he had just done. He had killed someone. Shocked and confused, Luo realized that he had thrown the guy off the bridge, fearing the consequences of his actions as a young person. Alice reminded Luo that a great existence stood before him, offering a potential solution. Overwhelmed, Luo pleaded for any way to undo what had just happened. Alice explained that there would be a price to pay for reversing time, and she asked Luo if he was aware of the consequences he would face. Fearful and desperate, Luo begged Alice for a solution, desperately hoping to avoid being arrested for murder at such a young age. Alice acknowledged his plea but emphasized that helping him would also come at a price. With trepidation, Luo expressed his desire to return to the moment just 3 minutes prior. Deep within his mind, he wondered why he had lost consciousness and felt as if something else had been controlling him. Alice posed the critical question: did Luo understand the price he would have to pay for reversing time? Alice informed Luo that reversing time for the entire Earth would come at a significant cost, possibly even his life. She asked him to carefully consider if he wanted to proceed. After contemplating the consequences, Luo made the decision to go ahead and have time reversed. Lord Alice initiated the reversal, and everything returned to its previous state. The people who were quarreling were back in their original positions, and Luo checked his pocket to find his phone safely there. Relieved, he took it out. Alice swiftly instructed Luo to quickly resolve the situation. He approached the person he had thrown off the bridge before the reversal and knocked him out. Luo promptly called for security, reporting that someone had fallen and needed assistance. The security personnel arrived and took the unconscious person away. After the time reversal, Alice began to feel unwell. Luo carried her on his back and they made their way to a rest area at the foot of the mountain. Luo suggested he go and buy water for her, but Alice insisted that she needed a place to rest and told him not to worry about getting water. Luo then brought her to a nearby hotel to provide her with a comfortable place to rest. Sensing her discomfort, Luo asked if it was a result of the time reversal. However, Alice shushed him and explained that someone had used their powers to manipulate him, amplifying his negative emotions and causing him to lose control. Luo briefly recalled feeling an intense surge of rage but couldn't remember the events that followed. Alice suggested that the person responsible might be another superpower user like him. In that moment, Alice stood up and reminded Luo of the reason they had set out together, to train his powers. Lord Alice asked Luo about his feelings when his phone fell down, and he expressed surprise, anger, sadness, and pain because the phone represented Yuzora to him. Alice pointed out that he had developed feelings not only for Yuzora but also for other items. She then questioned whether he was curious about why he obtained his ability. According to Alice, everything in the world has a reason, and there are no coincidences. Everything has its cause and effect. She revealed that she had granted Luo a portion of her power, specifically the deepest desire in his heart. This realization made Luo contemplate the significance of her words. Luo began to reminisce about his childhood when he often found himself alone at home while his parents went to work. He remembered his friend Xiaolin, with whom he could only spend time occasionally. The feeling of loneliness had lingered within him, even after he moved into his current apartment. Lord Alice explained that although he had felt tremendous loneliness as a child, he had subconsciously desired companionship and care from others. It was this intense desire that gave him the superpower to transform objects into living beings. Curiously, Luo asked why all the transformed objects were girls. Alice replied that it was simply his preference, as everything in his room was filled with girls. However, she suddenly coughed and realized that her recovery was taking longer than expected. Realizing that she needed to delve into something crucial, she got up and told Luo to wait for her return. In an instant, she disappeared. Left alone, Luo decided to take a shower. As he was in the bathroom, he heard a sound and witnessed a portal opening up before him. To his shock, Lord Alice fell through the portal and landed on the floor, her body covered in wounds.